When I was 10 years old, I lost 11-0 in an official football game. I still remember it very clearly. It is one of those moments that stays with you, not because of the success, but because of how strongly it makes you feel something. Because at that age, football already meant a lot to me. Before I tell you this story, I want to be very clear about one thing. Everything I am about to share with you is exactly the reason why I create my online football course. This course is not about being the most talented player, it's about doing the right things in the right order, even when nobody believes in you yet. If you are a player who truly wants to improve with discipline and with individual training, who wants to get more out of himself and who is willing to work, then this story is for you. My full online course is currently in pre-sale. When it's finished, the price will double. Back to the story. When I was in primary school, we always played football at the playground. It was always 5th grade against 6th grade. And I still remember I was in 5th grade, and to be honest, we almost never stood a chance. We always got smacked in the face, we always got beaten so heavily, almost every single time. But still, we kept on playing day after day because we loved the game so much. And then there was one boy who was incredibly good, who stood out from everybody else. A boy who was on a completely different level. Let us call him Lucas. Of course, it's not his real name, but to respect his privacy. Lucas was so good, he was exceptional. Everything he did looked so easy. His first touch, his vision, his speed, the way he understood the game. While the rest of us were just chasing the ball, he was already thinking 2 steps ahead. Lucas played in the youth academy of Racing Genk. You can just compare it with playing for the youth teams for Liverpool or Ajax. For us, he was always a legend at the playground. I always wondered why he was so good. What made him different from the rest of us? And on top of that, he even played 1 year above his age, which clearly showed how much talent he had. At that moment, everyone thought the same thing. This boy, Lucas, is gonna make it. This boy is gonna become a professional football player. Now, let us fast forward 12 years. 12 years later. Where do you think top talent Lucas is playing today? Where is he playing now? Which stadium do you imagine? Which league, which country? What do you think? Guys, he quit. He completely stopped playing football. Imagine for a moment that I could go back in time. Imagine that I stand in front of the 10 years old Jonathan right after the 11-0 loss, and I would tell him the following. I tell him that Lucas, or whatever he names us, the best player he has ever seen, will stop playing football one day. And I also tell him that the boy who kept on losing on the playground will later play for our first team, get paid to play football, and play in a football tournament for Belgian television, where he even scored some beautiful goals. Literally, nobody would believe me. And I honestly think everyone would laugh at me. And I would completely understand why. And yet, this story is not unique. I've seen it so many times. Players with incredibly amount of talent suddenly disappear from football. They stop, they quit, and they are gone. And every time people ask the same question, how is this possible? How can someone with so much talent just walk away from football? Well, guys, I can explain. Because one of the biggest reasons is pressure. These young lads, these young players feel pressure from literally everywhere. From coaches, from parents, from teammates, from scouts, from social media, and above them, from themselves. Everyone expects them to succeed. Everyone expects them to become the big next thing. And that creates so many social and mental pressure. Some young players simply cannot handle that pressure. Especially when football stops being fun and starts feeling like an obligation. But that brings us to the central question of this video. Does talent matter in football? Let me tell you a quick story. During my studies, I learned a lot about this topic. I have a sports degree, and one of the most interesting things I learned is how talent and genetics and training interact with each other. A very clear way to explain this is by comparing athletes to 4 different types of horses. Let me explain. The first type of horse is the Arabian thoroughbreds. These athletes have excellent genetics and a very high level of training commitment. They are very talented, but they also work extremely hard every single day. They just love training. They push themselves constantly. They are literally obsessed with improvement. A perfect example of this type player is like Cristiano Ronaldo or Erling Haaland. His talent is unbelievable, but his work ethic is what truly made the difference. The second type of player is the trotter. Trotters are athletes who have very good genetics, but they have a little less training commitment. They have still a lot of talent, but they do not always enjoy training. Sometimes they take shortcuts, but guys, let me be very clear. That does not mean that they are lazy. They still train a lot and perform at a very high level, but they do not have the same hunger for training itself. A good example is, for example, Eden Hazard. He did not enjoy training very much, but once he stepped onto the pitch, he was absolutely world class. The third type is the workhorse. These athletes have less genetic talent, but they have such an enormous amount of training commitment. They might not be the most gifted players, but they show up every fucking single day. They work, they grind, they sacrifice, and they give everything they have to chase their dream. I would put myself in this category. I know I'm not the most talented player, but I know how hard I am willing to work for my dreams. And then we have the fourth and the final type, and these are the wooden horses. These people have less genetic talent and no real training commitment at all. They do not enjoy football. They don't have a natural feel for the game, and they don't want to achieve anything with it. And that is completely fine. Because guys, not everyone needs to love football. So again, does talent matter in football? Let me give you one final example. There is a very interesting Dutch language podcast called Can Everyone Develop the Body of a Top Athlete? In this podcast, they talk about the idea that every athlete who performs at a high level has complete around 10,000 hours of delivered practice. That means roughly 10 years of training, 2 hours a day with focus, structure, and purpose. According to this theory, there are 2 essential ingredients for success. One are the genetics, and second is training. This can be explained with example of 2 balloons. I'm going to show you right now. You have both balloons exactly the same amount of air with the same force. In other words, They receive the exact same training input, and yet one of the balloons become much bigger than the other one. This means that if we have two individual persons and we put them the same amount and the same intensity of training, that one person can adapt better and make more progress than the other one. This principle is called the law of individual training adaptation. Everyone responds differently to training, and it's also very important to understand that when we stop training, we will lose all of those adaptations, like strength, fitness, technique, and confidence will slowly disappear. And that is exactly what happened between Lucas and me. Lucas stopped playing football, he stopped training and stopped playing football completely. Over time, he lost all his progress, while I kept training year after year, even when nobody was watching, even when it was so difficult. And that's why today I'm much further than people would ever expect it. So, does talent matter in football? Yes, talent matters, but it's not enough. The story of Lucas and me is perfectly captured in a quote by Alex Ferguson. Hard work will always overcome natural talent when natural talent does not work hard enough. Mwah!